before the smartphones, before the streaming, before people forgot what silence really sounds like. There were men and women who stood watch over the forests. High above the tree line, in towers made of wood and steel, they kept vigil. Their job was simple: protect the forest, spot the fires before they spread. But out there, isolated for months, surrounded by miles of untouched wilderness, you start to notice things other people don't. They called them lookouts. And for most, the stories were the same: long days, quiet nights, the smell of pine sap and rain. But then there's Tower 7. That tower has a different reputation. Old-timers in the Forest Service don't like to talk about it. Some say it was built on a fault line. Others claim it was never on the official maps to begin with. But every ranger who's worked there has the same look in their eyes when they come back. That faraway stare, like they're still watching something in the dark. In the 1970s, a lookout named Samuel Price vanished during his shift. His last radio transmission was a single sentence: "They're walking under the trees again." Search teams found his tower intact. The door was locked from the inside, but the windows, every one of them, had been shattered outward, like something inside the tower wanted out. A few years later, another lookout took the post. She lasted 3 weeks before hiking down the mountain in the middle of the night, barefoot, muttering one phrase over and over: "They sound like people." She never spoke again. After that, the tower sat empty for a decade, until 2009. That's when the job posting appeared again. No public announcement, no online listing, just a line item in a government registry marked emergency seasonal hire, Tower 7. Whoever took that position would be alone, completely alone, 40 miles from the nearest town, 3 miles from the nearest road, and surrounded by 50 square miles of forest that most maps don't bother to name anymore. Fire lookouts always talk about the silence. They say the silence in the mountains is different. It isn't quiet, it's alive. Every gust of wind, every snapping twig, every distant echo carries weight, like the forest itself is listening. Now imagine that silence breaking at 2 a.m, with footsteps on a metal staircase 40 feet below you. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. That's when you remember the rules. Rules that have been posted in every tower since the 1940s. Rules that don't exist in any official manual. Do not leave the tower between sunset and sunrise. Keep the door locked at night. Keep shutters closed. Do not respond to voices after dark. Do not look at the forest floor. If you hear footsteps on the stairs, stay silent. The things that look like people are not people. They sound like superstitions, until you hear your name being whispered from the stairs. My name is Marcus Webb, and I've spent 15 summers in a fire lookout tower in the Cascade Mountains. That's 15 seasons of solitude, 15 cycles of watching the forest breathe beneath me, and 15 years of following one unbreakable rule: never leave the tower after sunset. When I first applied for the position in 2009, I was 23 and desperate for escape. The city had chewed me up. A failed relationship, a dead-end job, student loans I couldn't pay. The idea of spending months alone in a tower, watching for smoke plumes and lightning strikes, seemed like paradise. No people, no problems, just me and the wilderness. The interview was conducted by a man named Harold Graves, the district ranger who'd been overseeing these lookout stations for 30 years. He was in his 60s with a face like weathered granite and eyes that seemed to look through you rather than at you. "The job is simple," he told me, sliding a single page of instructions across his desk. "Watch for fires during the day. Report coordinates. Keep the equipment maintained. That's it." "Sounds perfect," I said, already imagining the piece. He studied me for a long moment. There's one more thing. Rule number 1, actually. You don't leave the tower at night. Not for any reason. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of test. What, are there bears? There's worse than bears in these mountains, son. His expression didn't change. You stay in the tower from sunset to sunrise. You keep the door locked. You keep the windows shuttered. And you don't look down at the forest floor after dark. Are we clear? The way he said it made my skin prickle. Is this a joke? Do I look like I'm joking? He didn't. I nodded slowly. Okay, don't leave the tower at night, got it? I'm serious, Marcus. He leaned forward and I caught a whiff of coffee and wood smoke. 15 lookouts have been stationed at Tower 7 over the past 40 years. 12 of them finished their seasons without incident. 3 didn't follow the rules. We found one of them, the other 2. He shook his head. Just don't go outside at night. I should have walked away then. Looking back, that was the moment to stand up and to thank him for his time and find a normal job with normal rules. But I was young and stupid and thought I knew better. Besides, how bad could it really be? Part 2. The Tower. Tower 7 sits at 6,200 feet, perched on a rocky outcrop overlooking 50 square miles of dense forest. It's a 14-foot square cabin mounted on a 40-foot steel tower, accessible only by a narrow staircase that spirals around the central support column. The nearest road is a 3-mile hike down a barely maintained trail. The nearest town is 40 miles beyond that. When the helicopter dropped me off that first June morning, I felt like I'd been transported to another world. The air was so clean it almost hurt to breathe. The silence was absolute, broken only by the wind through the pines and the occasional cry of a hawk. My supplies, enough food for 2 weeks between resupply drops, were already stacked in the corner of the cabin. The tower itself was Spartan but functional. A firefinder, basically a rotating map table with a sighting device, dominated the center of the room. A narrow bed sat in one corner, a small propane stove in another. Windows wrapped around all 4 walls, giving me a 360-degree view of the forest. A radio, a logbook, binoculars, and a flashlight completed the essential equipment. And on the wall next to the door, written in faded marker on a piece of yellowed paper, was a list of rules. Do not leave the tower between sunset and sunrise. Keep door locked at night. Keep shutters closed at night. Do not respond to voices after dark. Do not look at the forest floor after dark. If you hear footsteps on the stairs, stay silent. The things that look like people are not people. I read it 3 times, my earlier confidence evaporating. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a safety precaution about wildlife. This was something else entirely. The radio crackled to life, making me jump. Tower 7, this is base. You there, Marcus? I grabbed the handset. Yeah, I'm here. Just got settled in. Good. Harold wanted me to confirm you got the rules. The voice belonged to a woman named Sarah, the dispatcher I'd met briefly during orientation. Did you read them? Yes, I read them. Sarah, what's this about? What's really out here? Static filled the silence for a few seconds. Just follow the rules, Marcus. Thousands of people hike these mountains every year. Campers, hunters, tourists. They're all fine because they're moving through. You're staying in one place, which makes you visible. Just follow the rules and you'll be fine. Visible to what? Have a good season, Marcus. We'll check in tomorrow morning. The radio clicked off. I spent the rest of that first day familiarizing myself with the equipment and the landscape. I learned to use the firefinder, practiced identifying landmarks, and started memorizing the terrain. The work was peaceful, meditative even. As the sun began to set, painting the mountains in shades of orange and purple, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't experienced in years. Then darkness fell, and everything changed. Part 3. The First Night. I followed the rules carefully that first night. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, I closed and latched all the shutters, reducing my panoramic view to nothing. I locked the door and tested it twice. I ate a cold dinner by flashlight, not wanting to attract attention with the propane lamp. And then I waited. For the first hour, nothing happened. I sat on my bed, reading a paperback novel by flashlight, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. The tower creaked in the wind. The metal stairs hummed with temperature changes. Normal sounds. Then I heard the footsteps. They were soft at first, barely audible over my own breathing, the distinctive sound of boots on metal stairs, climbing slowly from the ground far below. Step, step, step. A steady, measured pace. I froze, the book forgotten in my hands. The rules had been clear. If you hear footsteps on the stairs, stay silent. But every instinct screamed at me to call out, to demand who was there, to turn on the outside light and see what was climbing toward my door. I did none of those things. I sat in the darkness, listening as the footsteps climbed higher. 20 feet below, 15 feet, 10 feet. They reached the landing just outside my door. The footsteps stopped. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure whatever was out there could hear it. I stared at the door, watching for the handle to turn, expecting at any moment to see something try to force its way in. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. The thing outside, because I was certain now it wasn't a person, simply stood there, waiting. I could hear breathing through the door, slow and steady, punctuated by a wet, clicking sound I couldn't identify. Then it spoke. Marcus. My name in a voice that was almost human, almost. It had the right rhythm, the right syllables, but there was something wrong with the tone. Too flat, too hollow, like a recording played through a broken speaker. Marcus, I know you're in there. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from responding. It's okay, Marcus. I'm from the Forest Service. We need you to come down. There's been an emergency. The voice shifted slightly, taking on a note of urgency that still sounded artificial. Marcus, there's a fire. We need to evacuate you now. My mind raced. Could it be real? Could there actually be a fire I hadn't spotted? But no, I'd been trained to use the radio in emergencies. No one would hike up here in the dark to evacuate me. And the voice, God, the voice was all wrong. Marcus. The voice changed again, and this time it was my mother's voice, perfect in every detail, down to the slight rasp she'd developed from years of smoking. Marcus, honey, it's Mom. I'm so worried about you up here all alone. Please open the door. I just want to see that you're okay. My mother had died 3 years earlier. Lung cancer. Whatever was outside my door had pulled her voice from my memory somehow, replicated it perfectly, and was using it to try to get me to open the door. I squeezed my eyes shut and focused on breathing silently through my nose. The thing outside tried several more times, cycling through voices. My ex-girlfriend, Harold from the interview, Sarah from the radio, a child crying for help, Each one perfect, each one wrong in some subtle way I couldn't quite define. Finally, after what felt like hours, the footsteps retreated. Down the stairs, slowly, until they faded into silence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my back against the wall, the flashlight clutched in my hand, and waited for dawn. Part 4. Morning Light. When the first rays of sunlight pierced through gaps in the shutters, I felt like I could breathe again. I waited until full daylight before opening the shutters and unlocking the door. The morning was gorgeous. Clear blue sky, birds singing, a light breeze carrying the scent of pine. I stepped out onto the small platform that wrapped around the tower and looked down the stairs. Nothing. No footprints in the dust. No signs anyone or anything had climbed up during the night. The radio crackled inside. Tower 7, morning check-in. I grabbed the handset. Sarah, what the hell was that last night? You heard something? Her voice was carefully neutral. You know damn well I heard something. It was at my door. It used people's voices, my dead mother's voice. But you didn't open the door? No, I followed the rules, but then you did fine. She sounded genuinely relieved. It's worse the first few times. You'll get used to it. Get used to it? My voice rose. Sarah, what are those things? We don't know. We just know they're there. They're dangerous, and they can't get to you if you follow the rules. The tower is safe. The daylight is safe. Just maintain your routine and don't break protocol. This is insane. I should quit. I should hike down to the road and never come back. You could do that, she paused. But Marcus, where else are you going to go? Back to the city, back to debt and crowded streets and a life that was crushing you? Up there, you're safe as long as you follow simple rules. Down here, nothing's keeping you safe at all. She was right, and I hated that she was right. At least here, the danger was clear. The rules were defined. There was a strange comfort in that. I'll stay, I said finally, but I want answers. Finish the season? If you come back next year, Harold will tell you more. He only talks to the ones who prove they can handle it. I spent that day scanning for fires and trying not to think about the night to come. I saw smoke around noon, a legal campfire in a designated area, and reported it. I ate lunch. I read. I pretended everything was normal. As sunset approached, my anxiety returned. I closed the shutters earlier than necessary, locked the door, and waited. Part 5. Patterns in the dark. The visits became routine over the following weeks, though I never got truly used to them. Not every night brought footsteps on the stairs, but most did. I learned the patterns. Some nights the things would climb up and simply stand outside the door breathing. Other nights they would try the voices, cycling through people I'd known. Words designed to provoke an emotional response. They were learning me, I realized. Testing what worked. The worst nights were when there were multiple sets of footsteps. 2 or 3 or even more things climbing the stairs together, surrounding the tower platform. On those nights, they would have conversations with each other in borrowed voices, creating elaborate scenarios designed to confuse me. Marcus is probably asleep, one would say in Sarah's voice. Should we wake him? Another would respond in Harold's voice. We have those updated supply manifests he needs to sign. Let's just leave them by the door. The sound of papers shuffling, footsteps retreating. Then silence. I learned not to check for papers in the morning. There would be nothing there, of course. It was all theater, all designed to make me open the door. During the days, life continued normally. I spotted and reported 3 actual fires that season, all small, all quickly contained by ground crews. I watched weather patterns, logged wildlife sightings, and maintained my equipment. Helicopters brought supplies every 2 weeks, the pilots friendly but always gone before sunset. They knew the rules too. I started keeping a journal of the incidents. Not an official log, just personal notes about what happened each night. Patterns emerged. The things were more active during new moons. They were quieter during storms, as if the weather disrupted them somehow. They never tried to break the door or windows. They only used deception to try to get me to open them willingly. And I noticed something else. They were patient, infinitely patient. They would stand outside the door for hours without moving, just waiting, as if time meant nothing to them. Part 6. Breaking point. 6 weeks into the season, I made my first mistake. It was late July, and a particularly bad night. Multiple sets of footsteps had been climbing and descending the stairs for hours, and the voices had been especially aggressive. One had been using my brother's voice, describing a family emergency in vivid, horrible detail. I knew it was fake. My brother was fine. I'd confirmed it during my last radio check. But hearing his voice begging me to come down and call home was wearing me down. Around 2 a.m., exhausted and frustrated, I yelled at the door, "Shut up! I know you're not real, just leave me alone." The voices stopped immediately. The sudden silence was somehow worse than the noise had been. Then came laughter. Multiple voices, all laughing in perfect unison, and the sound of it made something primal in my brain scream danger. It wasn't cruel laughter or mocking laughter. It was triumphant laughter. They'd gotten me to respond. The footsteps rushed down the stairs in a clatter of movement, and I heard new sounds below. Branches breaking, something large moving through the brush. More of them were coming, drawn by my voice like sharks to blood. I spent the rest of that night in perfect silence, barely breathing as what sounded like dozens of things moved around the base of the tower. They didn't climb up. They didn't need to. They'd learned something about me, and I could be provoked. In the morning, I found the area around the tower's base trampled, vegetation crushed in circular patterns. Claw marks, if that's what they were, scored the metal support beams, though they hadn't attempted to climb. Sarah was furious when I reported the incident. "You spoke to them?" "Marcus, that's explicitly against the rules. I know, I'm sorry, You don't understand what you've done. They'll focus on you now, they'll try harder. Every night will be worse." She was right. For the next week, the nocturnal visits intensified. The things seemed to know exactly what to say, what voices to use, what scenarios would affect me most deeply. They described deaths of people I loved in graphic detail. They mimicked emergency situations. They pretended to be rescue teams coming to save me from imaginary dangers. I stopped sleeping properly. I doze in snatches during the day, but nights became an endurance test. My logs became sloppy. I missed a small fire that a hiker reported before I spotted it, earning a reprimand from Harold. Then, on night 53 of the season, everything changed. Part 7. What I saw. I broke the rules again, but this time it was accidental. A storm had rolled in that evening, violent and sudden. Lightning flickered constantly, and the wind threatened to tear the shutters from their hinges. I was tracking the lightning strikes, trying to spot any fires they might have started when one of the shutters tore loose. The window was suddenly exposed, And I had a choice. Leave it open all night and risk what might look in, or fix it immediately. I chose to fix it. The problem was to secure the shutter from inside. I had to look down through the window to see where the latch had broken. Just for a moment, just a quick glance, I looked down. The tower sits 40 feet above the ground, and in the lightning flashes, I could see the forest floor clearly. What I saw there froze me in place. They weren't animals. They weren't people. They were something between and beyond both. The closest one stood directly beneath my window, looking up at me. Its body was roughly humanoid, but wrong in proportions. Arms too long, torso too short, legs that bent at an extra joint. Its skin was pale and seemed to shift in the lightning flashes, as if unable to decide on a consistent form. But the face, God, the face. It had no face, not blank, not smooth, absent. Where a face should have been was a hollow space, a void that seemed to drink in the light, yet somehow I knew it was looking at me. I could feel its attention like a physical weight. There were dozens of them scattered around the base of the tower, all different, all wrong in unique ways. Some had too many limbs. Others seemed to flicker between solid and translucent. One was crawling on what should have been its back, its spine bent in a way that made my stomach turn. When they realized I was looking, they all turned toward my window in perfect synchronization. Then they started climbing. Not up the stairs, up the support beams, the tower structure itself. They moved like insects, finding purchase where there should be none. Ascending rapidly, I stumbled backward, my heart exploding in my chest. The rules suddenly made horrible sense. Do not look at the forest floor after dark. Looking created a connection. Seeing them meant they could see me, truly see me, and that changed something fundamental about the protection the tower offered. I grabbed the flashlight and radio. Base. This is Tower 7. I have an emergency. Static. The storm was interfering with transmission. The first one reached my window. It pressed against the glass, and the void where its face should be seemed to expand, trying to find a way through. The window held. For now. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed a blanket and covered the broken window, blocking my view of them. The moment I couldn't see them, the scratching on the walls stopped. I spent the rest of the night crouched in the corner farthest from the windows, listening to them probe the tower's exterior, looking for a way in. But as long as I couldn't see them, and they couldn't see me seeing them, the physical barrier held. Dawn came eventually. It always does. When I finally dared to uncover the window and look out, they were gone. The shutter lay on the ground below, the only evidence the night had been real. Part 8. Answers. The radio crackled to life at 8 a.m. sharp. Not Sarah this time, Harold. You looked, didn't you? It wasn't a question. The shutter broke. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter. Intent doesn't matter to them. You looked. And that means we need to extract you. Now. I can finish the season. I covered the window and they left. I can... No, son, you can't. Once you've seen them, really seen them, they'll never stop trying. You're compromised. We're sending a helicopter at noon. Be ready. Relief and shame washed over me in equal measure. Relief that I'd be leaving this nightmare. Shame that I'd failed. What happens to the tower? We'll seal it for the season. Honestly, you lasted longer than most rookies. You did good, Marcus. Harold, please. What are they? You said you'd tell me if I finished the season? A long pause. You didn't finish the season. I lasted 53 days. That's got to count for something. Another pause, longer this time. Finally. All right. But this doesn't leave the service, understand? We've studied them for decades, Marcus. The things in these mountains, we don't know exactly what they are, but we know what they do. They hunt awareness. They're drawn to consciousness, to attention. Most creatures don't think enough to attract them. Animals operate on instinct, and they pass right by. But humans, we're aware. We plan, we imagine, we focus. That makes us visible to them. But why can't they get into the tower? The towers are designed with iron and steel in specific patterns. The wood is treated with compounds that discourage them. It's old knowledge, the kind that doesn't fit into modern science textbooks. The point is, the towers are safe zones as long as you follow the rules. But once you've established eye contact, once you've looked directly at them and they've looked back, you've formed a connection. They'll never stop trying to get to you after that. So what do? Same thing the others do. You go home. You try to live normally, and you hope they don't follow. That stopped me cold. Follow? They can leave the mountains? Sometimes. Rarely. But it happens. That's why we have the exit protocols. When you leave here, you'll go through a debriefing. We'll give you protection. Charms, I guess you'd call them, though that's not quite right. Things to make you less visible, and you'll have to follow rules in the outside world too. What kind of rules? Never sleep in complete darkness. Never go into abandoned places alone. Don't attract their attention by thinking about them too much. Most importantly, if you hear familiar voices calling to you from places they shouldn't be, ignore them. Always ignore them. The helicopter arrived at noon as promised. As we lifted off and the tower shrank below me, I looked down at the forest. In the shadows beneath the trees, in the dark places where sunlight didn't reach, I could see movement. Dozens of shapes, pale and wrong, watching me leave. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like prey that had temporarily escaped the hunting ground, but would never truly be safe again. Part 9. The second season. I didn't go back the next summer. I got an apartment in Seattle, found a job in a bookstore, tried to live a normal life. But Harold's rules followed me everywhere. I kept lights on while I slept. I avoided hiking trails and dark forests. I ignored strange sounds and out-of-place voices. And it worked, mostly. There were moments, shadows that moved wrong, footsteps in empty hallways, my mother's voice on a dead phone line. But nothing came for me. The problem was normal life felt gray and hollow after the tower. The city was too loud, too crowded, too meaningless. I'd spent nearly 2 months in profound isolation, learning to read the forest like a language, living by rules that made sense even if they were terrifying. Coming back to traffic and rent payments and small talk felt absurd. Around April, I called Harold. I want to come back, I said. No. Please, I know the risks now. I know what I saw. I can do better. Marcus, you looked at them. You're compromised. But you said the protections work. You said people who leave can stay safe. If I'm safe out here, I'm safe in the tower, right? Silence on the line. Finally, there are additional precautions for lookouts who've had direct contact. Special equipment, more restrictive rules. It's not the same job anymore. I don't care. I need to go back, Harold. I can't explain it, but I need to. He sighed. Son, they get in your head, don't they? The mountains, the solitude, the clarity of purpose. I understand. Hell, I've been doing this for 30 years. because I understand. But you need to know what you're signing up for. Tell me, you'll be in Tower 12 this time, deeper in the wilderness. It's the most isolated station we have. The rules are stricter, and the nights are longer, but the tower is reinforced. If you follow every protocol exactly, you'll be safe. Probably. Probably. There are no guarantees with these things, Marcus. You know that now. I thought about my gray apartment, my meaningless job, the constant feeling that I was living in the wrong world. When do I start? Part 10. Tower 12. Tower 12 was everything Harold had promised, more isolated, more remote, more intensely alone. The hike from the drop point took 6 hours, and I saw no signs of human presence along the way. The tower itself was taller, older, and somehow more solid than Tower 7 had been. The rules posted inside were more extensive. Do not leave the tower between sunset and sunrise. Keep door locked at night. Keep shutters closed at night. Do not respond to voices after dark. Do not look at the forest floor after dark. If you hear footsteps on the stairs, stay silent. The things that look like people are not people. Wear the iron bracelet at all times. Burn sage every sunset. Do not say their name. They don't have one. If the radio calls your name after dark, don't answer. Trust the silence more than the sound. New equipment sat on the desk. An iron bracelet, bundles of sage, additional locks for the door, and a new type of shutter with symbols carved into the wood that looked older than civilization. The radio crackled. Sarah's voice. Tower 12, confirming you've arrived. I'm here. I read the rules. Good. You'll also notice you have a sat phone now. Use it only for emergencies and never after dark. The radio will be your primary contact. Sarah, can I ask you something? Maybe. How many people have worked Tower 12? A pause. In the 40 years we've been monitoring it? 17. And how many finished their seasons? Longer pause. 9. I felt cold despite the afternoon heat. What happened to the others? 4 broke the rules. We found their bodies. 4 more disappeared without a trace. You'll be the 18th. Try to finish the season, Marcus. That first night in Tower 12 was different from my time at Tower 7. The footsteps came earlier, just after sunset, but they were heavier, more deliberate. These weren't the probing, deceptive things from before. These were something older, more confident. They didn't use voices I recognized. Instead, they spoke in languages I'd never heard, sounds that seemed to bypass my ears and form directly in my brain. I couldn't understand the words, but I grasped their meaning. We see you. We remember you. You came back to us. I burned the sage as instructed, and the smell filled the cabin with smoke that seemed to thicken the air itself. The voices faded but didn't disappear. All night I heard movement around the tower, not just at the base but in the air, as if things were circling the structure at window height. The iron bracelet grew warm against my skin whenever something came close. Dawn was a mercy. Part 11. The long season. Weeks passed. I developed new routines, new coping mechanisms. I learned that the sage helped create a barrier, that the iron bracelet would heat up before something tried to get close, that certain thought patterns seemed to attract more attention than others. I also learned that Harold had been right. This job changed you, the isolation, the constant vigilance, the nightly siege mentality. I stopped thinking of myself as Marcus Webb, bookstore employee. I became Marcus Webb, fire lookout, guardian of Tower 12. It was a role that made sense in a way nothing else had. The forest revealed its secrets during the days. I spotted fires, tracked weather, monitored wildlife. I saw things other people never would. A lynx with her cubs, eagles building nests, the slow dance of seasons changing. The wilderness became my home in a way the city never had. But the nights remained a trial. Around week 8, I started noticing patterns in the visits. The things came in cycles like tides. Some nights were intense, with multiple entities testing the tower's defenses. Other nights were quiet, almost peaceful. The moon phases mattered, but so did things I couldn't track. Atmospheric pressure, perhaps, or magnetic fields, or factors beyond human understanding. I also realized I was changing. My senses had sharpened. I could hear things approaching from hundreds of yards away. I could feel weather changes in my bones. My dreams, when I managed to sleep, were filled with vast forests and ancient things that predated humanity. Was I becoming more attuned to the wilderness? Or was I becoming more like the things I was hiding from? I didn't know, and I was afraid to find out. Part 12. The Visitor. On day 73, something different happened. The helicopter arrived with supplies as scheduled, but this time someone rode along. An old woman, maybe 70, with silver hair and sharp eyes that reminded me of Harold's. She climbed down from the helicopter carefully and waved at me from the base of the tower. I descended the stairs. This was allowed during daylight, and met her on solid ground. Marcus Webb? She extended a hand. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Chen. I study the tower system. Study it? You mean you know what's out here? I know some things. May I come up? We should talk before sunset. We climbed together, and once inside the tower, she looked around approvingly. You keep it clean. That's good. Shows respect. Respect for what? For the boundaries you're maintaining. She sat at my small table. But, Marcus, Harold tells me you're one of the few who came back after making contact. That's unusual. Is it bad? Not bad. Different. Most people who see them never want to return to the wilderness. You did. Why? I struggled to articulate it. Out here, the rules make sense. The danger is real but manageable. In the city, everything is chaos, pretending to be order. At least here, I know where I stand. She nodded. You understand the territory. Good. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something that might sound crazy. The things you've encountered, they're not monsters. They're not demons. They're just different. They exist in spaces we don't normally perceive. Liminal spaces, boundary zones, places where one state of being transitions to another, like night and day. Exactly. Dawn and dusk, those transition moments, are when the barriers are thinnest, but also psychological boundaries, sleep and waking, life and death, alone and together. The towers sit at geographic liminal spaces between valley and peak, between civilization and wilderness. That's why they're effective. They exist at a boundary, and boundaries can be fortified. So the rules maintain the boundary. As long as you follow them, you're clearly on your side of the line. Break them, and you blur the distinction. You become something in between, and that's when they can reach you. I thought about this, but I looked at them. I saw them. Doesn't that mean I'm already compromised? It means you've acknowledged their existence. You can't unknow what you know, But that doesn't mean you're vulnerable. It means you have to be more careful, more mindful of the boundaries. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the forest in the afternoon light. The people who don't come back, they're usually the ones who can't accept the truth. They deny what they saw, or they become obsessed with understanding it completely. Both responses erode the boundaries. You seem to have found a middle path, accepting the reality without trying to control or deny it. Is that why you're here? To evaluate me? She smiled. Partly. But also to warn you, this season has been unusually active. We're seeing more incidents across all the towers. Something has changed in the forest, and we don't know what. Be extra vigilant in the weeks ahead. The helicopter took her away before sunset, and I was alone again. But her words stayed with me. Something has changed. That night, I found out what she meant. Part 13. The Breach. It started normally. Footsteps on the stairs, voices calling, the sage burning, the bracelet warming. Standard protocol. Then, around 2 a.m., I heard something new. Metal scraping against metal. Not at the door, above me. Something was on the roof. The tower shook slightly as weight moved across it. Dust fell from the ceiling seams. I grabbed the flashlight and aimed it upward, but of course I couldn't see through the solid roof. The scraping continued, methodical, as if something was testing the roof's integrity. Then came the sound of wood splintering. I grabbed the radio. Base, Tower 12, I have a breach situation. Static, then Sarah's panicked voice. What kind of breach? Something's on the roof. It's breaking through. Impossible. The roof is reinforced. It shouldn't be able to. A section of the ceiling bulged inward. One of the protective symbols carved into the wood began to smoke and char, as if burning from the inside out. It's breaking the protections, I shouted into the radio. Marcus, listen to me. Harold's voice, urgent. In the footlocker under your bed,